Russillo Show on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app.
We got another hour to go. Busy week post the NBA draft, and we're here late last night. We got Will Cain with us again. Am I here Monday? I better be, right? I'm here Monday.
You better be.
Why are you?
Yeah.
All
I
right.
just said yes.
No, I'm definitely here Monday. You just said yes?
Yeah.
And then we got a little bit of a road trip coming up later this summer. So looking forward to that. By the way, get your baseball in. Herb Street loves baseball. So glad the draft is over. That's day 2 on that joke. We're going to back off of that one. Tune into an NL Central battle on Sunday Night Baseball as the Cardinals host the Pirates, presented by Firestone Tires. Coverage of Sunday Night Baseball begins at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, and the ESPN app at 8 on ESPN. If you're a Bulls fan today, Will, give me level of depression versus justified level of depression post Jimmy Butler getting traded last night. Or maybe you're just a happy guy and nothing really gets to you.
Level versus justified level.
Yeah, you like that question? Like, what
Really?
are you feeling? You don't like that question.
Keep going.
What are you feeling? But then when you're having that moment, you're like, okay, how mad can I really be? How upset? Upset, sad, whatever. Do you understand the differential there and what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah, I like it. You're going to allow me to do some nuance. I can equivocate. I can take both sides of this argument. This is good. All right, so
Never lost.
undefeated. Never lost. Did I do a good impression?
You did. We're doing Bob Lee.
What? That's the new Bob Lee impression. Yeah. Do we have that pulled for a drop yet?
What? Fell asleep.
Fell asleep? What?
Why did I make it? I didn't do a very good one. Okay, so back to the question.
There it is. Sorry, do it again.
What?
Actually,
I'm
that was
now
when
do undefeated, never lost. What?
That was when Jay Williams told him that it had been reported. He had been told that Phil Jackson fell asleep during a lottery picks workout.
Yeah, we now know that was Luke Kennard and wasn't going to draft him anyway. I'm depressed. If I'm a Bulls fan, I'm depressed. You got, the famous Bill Simmons NBA trade metaphor is you never can get, 4 quarters for $1 never adds up in the NBA. You need the $1 bill, not the 4 quarters. And I think it's something you subscribe to. You talked about it on Mike and Mike this morning. You never get commensurate value for a superstar. Period.
You just don't. NBA GMs I've talked to said, you know what? I always want to. I win the trade if I get the best player. With 6, 7 different moving pieces, all these draft picks. Who's getting the best player?
Yep. Compound that with the fact that I think the quarters they got back, which don't add up to $1 anyway, are dimes. I just think Zach LaVine, man, you got 4 months of him. You didn't get a year of him. And he's the gem of this deal. I think Chris Dunn, man, you can retain some potential and hope and all that nonsense, but it's certainly diminished. Certainly. And Lauri Markkanen is a nice prospect. But here's the other side. You asked me the justified level of depression. And the one thing that makes this a little more justified is that Jimmy Butler did not want to be there. And that was, I look at it, Ryan, and I go, 2 years, man, 2 years. That's he's not gone tomorrow. But from what I hear and what you can verify or tell me I'm wrong on, what was going on in that locker room and the guy Jimmy Butler was for a team was not good. And that stuff is constantly undervalued. You just can't be a cancer. You just can't be poison. And I'm not saying Jimmy didn't deserve to be or it's his fault. Maybe it's somebody else's fault in that locker room. But the bottom line was that was the sentiment in Chicago that Jimmy was a problem.
But he was a problem, I believe, by the Bulls' own doing, that they didn't handle him the right way. So he's the employee that gets messed with, and they go, well, why does this guy have a problem with us? Like, well, because, as the story goes, as I said in Mike and Mike, as I've told on this radio show before, is that when Jimmy Butler was 3 years into this, and they were talking contract extensions. You remember, this is before the cap went up. So there was even a time when Klay Thompson was rumored to be at about $70 million. You're like, I kind of like Klay Thompson, but man, you got to be kidding. $70 million for Klay Thompson? Now, you do it again, you do it longer, you pay him even more, okay? And that's how good Klay Thompson became. But Jimmy Butler, when they were talking about his contract extensions, it was this, oh, look at this guy. He didn't do anything the first year. Now he's 13 points per game. This is a nice player. We'd like to pay you about $40 million. No. I might be worth $40 million. That might be a fair value, But in the open market, in the NBA, once I get there, I'm just going to get the max amount, even if I'm not awesome, because that's just the way it works, because every team's trying to find a guy that's even close to what I might be. And the Bulls, as it was told to me, said, you know what, we're taking Tony Snell, and we're going to play him your minutes, and then your value is going to be even lower. And he was like, bleep this, went out. Tibbs is like, don't worry about it. I'm playing you. And then he goes out, gets 20, and then gets his full 70-plus million. And Butler has resented them ever since that. They shot it down. He's rolled his eyes when asked about it. I feel really good about it because of all the people that I've talked to involved in that deal. So Butler never trusted them because of that. So if Butler was the problem, maybe it's way worse. Maybe day-to-day, I'm not around that team. I'm never going to sit here in my national perch that's not doing any of the beat stuff that all those guys have to do and tell you that Jimmy Butler is awesome day-to-day, because I just don't know. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to assume anything. But if he's tough to work with, is it him? Or is it him going, this place, man? And then you've got his trainer last night who tweets out, after the trade, 0-82, Bulls' worst culture, have met drug dealers with higher morals. And I don't know if that means that he was promised that Butler wouldn't be traded. Butler's going to lose some money on all this stuff. But if it was going on for a year, if Jimmy Butler was on the market for a year, even if you think the Bulls are the dumbest front office, and I'll admit, I think they get criticized a little bit too much, and I know that's like one of those ducks as soon as he says it, because they had a really good stretch of drafting and signing. The Bulls front office actually at one point had a really good stretch there. It's been awful lately, but they knew what the market was for this guy. So if you're a Chicago fan, you're upset. You cannot like any of the pieces, but it's not like Monday the Bulls went, you know what, let's just trade Jimmy Butler and then we'll see what happens. They knew what the market was for him for almost a year, because the same exact deal almost went down with Minnesota in 2016's draft.
So here, listen to me, because I'm not being as dismissive as this sounds.
Okay.
Everything you just said is insightful, colorful, good information about what's going on in Chicago between Jimmy Butler and that organization. But it also has no bearing on the original question, which was, is the trade value, are you justified in being depressed about the trade value return? Whether it's Jimmy's fault or the Bulls' fault, the fact of the matter remains, it wasn't working here, and that depresses your trade value, thus making your depression a little less justified, right? So I
think that's kind of the point that I was hoping you would get to.
Yeah, I agree with you, by the way. This whole thing, like he's a bad guy, he's a good guy, you've got to contextualize that, because organizations can be bad organizations, and situations can be bad situations, and management can be moronic, and management can make bad decisions and continue to depress a guy who's really talented like Jimmy Butler and elevate a guy like Tony Snell, who didn't deserve that sort of push from the organization. But all that being said, you got to set it aside when you say, was this trade fair? Because the fact was it wasn't working, and that depressed Jimmy's trade value.
You're right. I mean, when you have to trade this kind of guy, you're never going to win the trade.
Never.
Unless you get some pick that down the road turns into something where you go, oh, okay, all the protection came off, the pick's 2-3 years from now. And look, I went through all of these guys. I went through all of these picks and trades from the last few years. I mean, the package they got for James Harden, where I still to this day don't understand why OKC couldn't ride that out for another year. I mean, Jeremy Lamb, Kevin Martin, picks, you know? I mean, the Kevin Love deal actually, in retrospect, was terrific, and we're still not even sure what Wiggins is. You know, the KG deal that gets crushed all the time, now 10 years ago, they got Al Jefferson. They got the 6th pick. They got another first-rounder. The rest of the pieces are kind of irrelevant, but they couldn't get Rondo out of that. Like, you just go through all this. Remember the Dwight Howard trade? Obviously, Cerruti does, as a Magic fan. When they traded Dwight Howard, I am going, you have to do better than Aaron Aflalo as the main piece coming in. You have to do. And the weird part about that Dwight Howard trade is it was the Lakers, it was the Magic, it was the Nuggets, and the Sixers. The Magic ended up doing better than anybody else with Bynum moving, with Iguodala moving, with Dwight Howard moving, because the Magic actually ended up with draft picks.
I refer to that as the trade that everyone lost. Like, nobody won that trade.
Okay, we can do this in football. There's the Herschel Walker trade where you trade the superstar and all the change you get in return adds up more than the dollar you traded away. But in basketball, can we come up with the example of where it did work out? You traded away the superstar, and what you got coming back was actually better for you. Can you come up with that example? What is that?
Kevin Love.
They also had Anthony Bennett and Thaddeus Young in that. But
Wiggins was enough?
Wiggins, Yep.
Think about this. Like Love, that thing was on the way out too with Minnesota, and they didn't want to pay him all the way. And David Kahn did the weird contract with him. And remember, they weren't even like Rambis wasn't even playing him at the end of games there. And I get defensively and the numbers and all that. Like there's a lot going on during the Kevin Love T-Wolves era. But if you got the first there because LeBron wanted to make all that work, and you punch like we're out on Wiggins. Think all the teams. Think how bad the Bulls would have loved that. I would think. Or how bad. Imagine Paul George. You go, look, we're going to keep him. We'll resign him. We'll give you the number one right now, last night. Pritchard be doing backflips, but it doesn't sound like the Kevin Love one of all the ones that I have here. We went through with research. The Kevin Love one's a good one.
Hey, how does this trade fly today? So this has been mentioned several times by you today. Jason Tatum for
just
Paul
Butler.
George.
Oh,
just Paul George, straight up.
If you're Boston and you don't have anything beyond this year, you can't do it. And if you were the Pacers, you would be pumped. Coming up next, Jeff Goodman on that actual trade rumor. Not necessarily unsigned, but there was stuff out there this morning saying the Celtics could do this deal and get an extension. I don't know. That surprised me a bit. So we're going to do the latest on the NBA rumors after last night's draft. Will Cain, Jeff Goodman, Russillo Show. Get in touch with us at Russillo Show, 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Will Cain, Jeff Goodman with us, Russillo Show on ESPN Radio. I want to do as much as we can, Jeff. Let's start with some rapid-fire Celtic stuff after the draft, maybe just a bunch of different things that were out there. Did the Celts have any package for the Bulls and Butler last night?
I don't think they had anything that was reasonable. I think certainly they've talked in the past, and they spoke last night, but I just think they were further away. They weren't willing. You know what I think it is with Jimmy Butler? Part of the problem is the talent you get. You understand he's an all-star. But right now, there's a lot of stuff out there about Jimmy Butler in the locker room that scares people off. And I think teams like the Celtics are trying to figure out, do you want to bring him in with some of the other guys, and are you going to give up 2 first-rounders? Remember, do they have anybody like Zach LaVine that they were going to give up the Celtics?
No, Jaylen Brown is not even Zach LaVine.
No, he's not even close, right? Not even close. And like Chris Dunn, while he didn't do anything last year, Chicago coveted him a year ago.
Right, they did. I mean, the oddity of this thing is that it's almost the same package they were trying to get last year that we heard was approved at one point, and then that relationship with Tibbs. It's kind of funny that Tibbs and Chicago worked something out here. Let me put it to you this way. Do you think Danny would have done just the Tatum pick and then figure out the salary stuff? But they could have absorbed Butler's salary if they wanted to, but they probably want to push some of that out for free agency, and I'm making this long-winded, but do you think Ainge would have done just Tatum essentially for Butler?
Yes.
He has to, right?
Of course. I mean, if
now,
you're him, how do you not?
All right, so we agree there. Wouldn't you rather do that?
And Crowder. You'd have to, again, I've always said, you have to put in Crowder in any trade that Jimmy Butler's involved in.
Right, because they don't like each other.
Yeah, I mean, it would be like you guys just fist fighting right here.
Day 3, Will Cain, Russillo.
I didn't know the bad blood was that much between
them. And 2 Marquette guys who play together.
Yeah.
That's a cool part of that one.
So shouldn't Chicago have wanted a guy just like Tatum instead of the other 3 pieces? That's where I'm trying to get to this.
I guess, but you're thinking if you're Gar Forman, we've got 3 starters out of this deal. Ultimately, that's what hey,
that's exactly right.
I mean, you're doing that trade, though.
I know.
You have to do that trade, saying to yourself, you're getting Zach LaVine.
He was a starter for
Chris Dunn.
Right, healthy.
So you got your backcourt, and Markkanen, who's your starting 4-man. If you don't believe that, you can't do that trade.
Okay. All right.
I'm not saying I agree with Gar
Forman. Some teams loved Markkanen, and other people were like, stop asking me about it.
You know what it is? Those 3 guys are a good starting 3 for a non-playoff team. Right? That's
maybe. I mean, Dunn's a mess first year.
Right. If you had to say which one of those 3 guys are you most worried about being able to start on an NBA team, I'm not sure it's Markkanen. Isn't it Dunn?
Today it probably is because you can't shoot.
LaVine is much better than I thought he would be. All right, let's
way better because he can shoot it.
The analytics don't love him.
But he's coming off a big injury, too.
Yeah, but, LaVine, I think LaVine's the most important piece in that whole thing because we just look at knee injuries and be like, he'll be fine.
Right before he comes off into restricted free agency.
Right.
Just like
you're going to pay him
for that.
Will is ready to go today.
All right, so which pick last night do you like the most? Which team is going to be most excited about what? Don't give me Markelle Fultz, by the way.
I'm not going to give you Markelle Fultz.
Don't even give me Lonzo either. Let's get a little deeper on it. Who's going to be most excited after what they got last night?
I like what Sacramento did overall. I just like what Sacramento, and I never thought I'd wake up saying that today, right? I mean, especially they draft Fox at 5, and then what do? They got 10. And Zach Collins is on the board, and I'm fully expecting them to take Zach Collins. And instead, they move down to 15 and 20. And I'm saying to myself, oh, my God, here they go again. They're going to screw this thing up because at 15 and 20, this thing, you have no idea what's going to happen between 10 and 15, who's going to go off the board. And you end up getting Justin Jackson, who's ready to contribute and high character like Fox. And then at 20, you roll the dice with Harry Giles. And I get he's got knee injuries, but I can't get the visions out of my head of Harry Giles when I saw him after the first torn ACL. And you would make a case, if you had seen him then, that he was the number 1 overall pick in this draft. Now, can he get back there? I don't know. But at 20, and again, high character again, then you go Frank Mason in the second round. So what Sacramento's done here, they've gotten better, and they've got the Pied Piper of this draft, which is De'Aaron Fox. He's the guy that can lead. He's so vocal. To me, he's the point guard. He and Lonzo Ball are similar in a lot of ways, but where they're different is Lonzo doesn't talk, and De'Aaron doesn't stop talking in a good way.
Who made the biggest mistake last night? Who should be the most disappointed this morning?
I mean, you'd say the Bulls, just because I would have hung on to Jimmy. I wouldn't have given him up yet. I would have hung on and seen what else I could have gotten through free agency here. The one area that I think they screwed up on is if you wait it out, you see who misses in free agency. And if somebody misses, they might be willing to give up a little more, right? You get desperate. And that's what I would have waited to see if you could have gotten a little bit more.
We got Jeff Goodman here. Paul George, I don't mind what Pritchard didn't do. Honestly, that's kind of one of the things I was saying yesterday, is if the package is not there, what do you know about what may have even been close? Do you know anything about what the market was for George, what he's looking for right now? How close this? There's even a rumor today that the Celtics are still in on this.
Yeah, I think they are. I mean, I think there are ongoing discussions here. They weren't that close. And part of the problem here is, right, they put out there, it's out there that, Paul George is going to be gone after a year. So now, if you're Kevin Pritchard, you have no leverage. Everybody knows you got to trade him now. So his value is kind of at its bottom today. And there aren't that many teams. How many teams, Lakers think they're going to get him anyway. How many teams are going to rent him? Even the Celtics. What are you going to give up to rent Paul George?
That's what I didn't understand about the report this morning, was that the Celtics are in play, and then whoever wrote it was like, and they feel really confident that George will come with 3-year extension. What?
How can you feel confident?
I wouldn't give up this pick to rent him.
I wouldn't either.
I wouldn't give up next year either of those picks.
And you do it for Indiana. You would do it in a heartbeat for Jason Tatum, wouldn't you?
Oh, done.
Straight up.
That's my whole point on the Butler. At least I have like that one guy instead
that you can count on.
3 maybes.
Right. I agree with that. I agree. I would go for the one guy that you love that you have a chance to sell as the next Paul George.
If those conversations begin last night at some point during the draft and presumably before Boston makes their pick, do we need to assume that those conversations include, hey, Indiana, who do you like at 3? If we do this deal down the road, who do you like?
Sure, but the Celtics aren't. But the Celtics ahead of time like Tatum. It's not like they didn't like Tatum. They like Jackson too. It's not. If they gotten him in, things might have been different here. Tatum fits the Celtics. He also fits the Pacers because he's like Paul George. He may not be the two-way player George is, but offensively, he's further along right now than Paul George was when he came out of Fresno State. So I don't think you're taking Jason Tatum thinking that, hey, we've got a better chance to flip him to Indiana. No, they took Jason Tatum because that's who Danny Ainge felt like arguably was the best player in this draft. And you can make a case, Ryan and I have talked about this. Jason Tatum, I mean, he's terrific. Offensively, he's super skilled. He's got an NBA game to him that, to me, he didn't get a chance to show a lot of it at Duke. And I think, the one thing with Danny Ainge that he sees, these guys go to the games. They can, the All-Star games when they're in high school. They go to the practices. So he didn't just see him in the Duke setting. He might have fallen in love with Jason Tatum 2 years ago before he ever got to Duke and saw the way he can pass the ball. I mean, he was a point forward back when I first saw him.
Awesome stuff, Jeff. Great work this week.
Thanks for having me, guys. I like your shirt there.
Thank you. I like your shirt.
You haven't showed that shirt off quite enough, I don't think.
No, this is the Russillo T-shirt line. We had two different designs. This is the Greg Popovich Hates You T-shirt. And there's only a few people that have these because they're in a box in my garage. We're going to sell them or anything, but no. All right. Coming up next, let's go out to Chicago, check the depression levels. We're going to do that next. Will Cain, Russillo Show, ESPN Radio.
Okay, Kevin, for the grand prize of $1 million, what color is the White House?
I know this.
5 seconds.
Oh, switching to Geico could save you a bunch of money on car insurance?
Okay. Judges? That's true, Kevin. They'll allow it. Congratulations. You're a winner.
Woo!
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Are we doing previously with Josh Duhamel when Will asks him about being normal? Is that what we've decided? I didn't think there was any problem with that. You almost have regret, though, post-Duhamel. Do you have post-Duhamel depression?
I took a picture with Duhamel afterwards, and guess what?
It's a wake-up call, man.
My eyes are closed.
No way! The only one?
The only one.
That's the worst.
One.
Not good.
Do I have regrets about asking a guy that pretends for a living? Hey, you seem normal.
You're totally relatable. In these 3 minutes I've known you from
Love you, man.
on my side, it totally works. Russillo Show with Will Cain today. Sarah Spain joins us now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Pennzoil Synthetics, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. Sarah, give us a sense, give us the full range of emotions, but the overriding thing, because I know Bulls fans weren't exactly in the greatest mood the last year or so, but the morning after Butler's traded out, the thoughts in Chicago are what?
First of all, let me just say this is the second show today that I was on with Josh Duhamel and did not get to meet him or talk to him, which is a real disappointment for me. I did actually meet him a couple years ago, and you're right, Will. He's totally normal and super nice in the 3 minutes that I interacted with him.
And super good looking. Super good looking.
Duh. Yeah, so Bulls fans are super mad, which is kind of dumb because, listen, if you demand that your team makes bold moves and actually goes for it, and then they do that, you can't complain. And while there's very low expectations for the current front office there, a lot of people think Jerry Reinsdorf's loyalty can actually be a detriment at this point, particularly in putting all of his faith in Gar Forman and John Paxson and not feeling like there's a lot coming back that is warranted in terms of faith. A lot of big draft misses, like trading up for Doug McDermott, messaging fails like last year saying we're going to get younger and more athletic and then signing Wade and Rondo. So that's why I think people don't believe that they can get things done and get things done right. When you give away a guy like Jimmy Butler, look, you said it on SportsCenter with SVP last night, you're not going to get back another Jimmy Butler. You don't see trades like that. You're not giving, apples to apples. Are the pieces good enough? Probably not, and that's why people are complaining. But they got off the fence and they picked a lane. And you guys know that in the NBA, being in the middle is the worst. And especially if you had a stretch of time like the Jordan years, we're still kind of in a Jordan hangover in Chicago. We're not satisfied by being the 7th or 8th seed and then getting bumped in the first round. And, when we missed the playoffs 2 years ago, we, meaning the Bulls, when the Bulls missed the playoffs 2 years ago, at the time they had the third longest playoff streak in the league, but it didn't really feel like it because they never got anywhere. So I would rather see a rebuild and actually try to get great instead of settling for that 7 and 8 seed and getting bounced and not really ever having a shot at it.
We're talking with Sarah Spain, again, co-host of Izzy in Spain. That'll be right here on ESPN Radio, 9 to 11 Eastern throughout the week. Today's also the anniversary of Title IX. You're going to be having this on the trifecta tomorrow. That's noon to 3 Eastern for a Title IX special. When you look back at what it's meant to you as a college athlete and now how you talk about it and where it is today, we know the history, but how different is this topic for you as somebody that obviously this meant so much to you for access to athletics, but then also somebody that talks so much about it now today in your role?
Well, yeah, if you're my age, you don't even think about it. It was always just a thing, right? But I know that my mom played what you would call college tennis and field hockey, but it was before Title IX. It was Division III, so it wasn't really anything. She was an athlete and liked playing stuff, but it was like the equivalent of a club sport for a lot of sports for women back in the older days. So if you grew up with it and never knew a difference, unless you sit down and try to analyze how many things changed and not just in sport, but in equality of opportunity in education, that's one of the biggest parts of Title IX, safety in education, being given the same opportunities to learn. And it's huge. I think that the number one thing I try to do now is to dispel some of the misconceptions about it that, well, Title IX is the reason that my collegiate wrestling program went away, which is not the case. There's a million other things, and the best place to look for that is the big men's football program that's taking all the money away from the school. Yes, they're making it, But if it's a state-run place, there's a balance that's needed. So yeah, I mean, I think about it a lot, and I think sometimes we don't acknowledge enough what a huge role it's played in the massive numbers of girls playing, and also why we crush everyone in women's sports at the Olympics a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Oh, this is going to work, because I thought I was going to have to lay down this huge runway to tell you, I know everybody's going to talk about all the positives and stay away from the controversies and celebrate it, but it's the way I'm built. Let's talk about the parts that are interesting to me.
I'm so shocked that you would have a problem with Title IX.
No, now see, you're profiling. You're doing things that are very, very unfair. I didn't say I had a problem, but I want to get into the chewy parts. So do you think Title IX right now is more appreciated or more resented among, the average listening audience?
If by average listening audience, you mean males 18 to whatever, who likely have never read up on the specifics of it, I say they probably don't appreciate it. But I don't want to underestimate the number of woke dudes out there who think it's cool that their daughters and wives and sisters and friends are badass athletes. So I don't want to make any assumptions.
But that's not what anybody. Having some resentment towards female athletes isn't really what I think they would feel.
No, I think if you
actually
know what Title IX is about, then you appreciate it, because you realize that it's allowed people that you care about that don't have a penis to do the things that they want in sports.
But, and you alluded to it, what do you say to the argument of, well, yeah, but because of the existence of football and then the stated goal of creating equality, what we ended up with is the death of all these men's programs that accompanied Title IX?
Okay, so if you look at even just a couple of years ago, it's really football and basketball that constitute almost 80% of men's sports budgets in Division I's like FBS a couple of years ago. These are stats from a couple of years ago. It's more convenient to blame Title IX and the existence of women's programs than it is to blame the revenue men's programs, because that's where schools are getting their money. But the point is that Title IX is supposed to be equality of opportunity. And because those bigger sports make the school money doesn't necessarily mean that that's where the budget has to go. When they decide to cut non-revenue men's sports, and ones we usually hear about are stuff like wrestling or swimming, it's not to fund women's sports, it's to put more money into those major men's sports. Look at the lockers that have holograms of the players. That's where the money is going. To stuff like that where you can draw recruits. You're not spending a ton of money on a women's tennis team. And back in 2011, if you look at the growth of male athletes at a school compared to women's athletes, they were actually outgaining. Men student athletes were actually still outgaining women. It's just that you're looking at wanting to get back to the time where the percentages were so far away, because that worked for you, right? It felt right for you. But what we're realizing now is that there are as many girls, or a large number of girls, that want to compete.
Why don't you like any of your female friends, Will?
Yeah, Will.
I'm just kidding. Hey, Sarah.
Well, I heard you were a great polo player.
Come on.
Not on
you
horses,
left out
in
one
water.
word. You left out one word. What was
in water.
It? Right.
Yes.
Polo paints an image of me that you wanted to paint.
No, I didn't.
Northeast.
Cornell was national championships in horse polo, and I'm very proud of being a Scotty prepster. Yeah, we were great at horse polo. Water polo is vicious, man. There's like kicking and
Talk to me
grabbing
about it.
and
Talk to me about it.
Yeah.
Did you go to Cornell?
Me? Yes.
He's messing with you, Sarah. Because he's building it right on top of Polo. Now he's got you where he wants you, in the corner with Polo and Cornell.
No.
I see. We're not allowed to talk about where you went to school if it's Ivy League, because then we're bragging. But all you guys can just wear your stuff on hats.
That's
and
how you
all
do
the time.
it. That's how you do it. You lean into it. I love it. That's
I just
how
got
I
a
do
new
it.
UVM bandana, so I'm pretty fired up for this weekend. Hey, Sarah, seriously, really appreciate it. Thanks so much. All right.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right, Sarah Spain with the goodbye that makes you think maybe she didn't have that great of a time. Izzy in Spain, 9 to 11 Eastern, right here on ESPN Radio. Okay, Will Cain asked Josh Duhamel if he was normal.
No, I didn't. I didn't even ask. I just said you are.
Okay, you're going to hear that next. Transformer star, Russillo Show, ESPN Radio. Want to thank Will Cain for the last 3 days. Also pumped about the draft and getting to hang out with Van Pelt yesterday. Got a great response doing Sports Center with him. We were hanging out here at late. It didn't even matter, man. This is my favorite time of the year, so another good week in the books. Also want to say a happy birthday to our man Tommy Freeze Pops, turning 25 this weekend.
Wow.
Man.
I had no idea till the end of the show, really.
Yes.
25. Can rent a car.
How hammered? Scale of 1 to a billion.
tonight's going to be fun. Tomorrow will probably be a little recovery, but that'll be fun inevitably. And then Sunday will be tough.
Yeah, because 2-5, though, you don't care.
You're going 2 nights in a row easy, right?
Easy.
Yeah, and then probably Monday night, just because that's when the team down here gets the night off.
Oh, the crew.
You guys?
The Lokes.
Not these guys.
Locals.
Not these
PAs,
guys.
yeah.
Different guys.
So, that weekend preview brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit us at Geico. Visit us at geico.com or call 1-800-947-AUTO. Also reminding you, if you miss any of the show, subscribe, leave a comment. Our Best Of podcast available in the Listen tab of the ESPN app or Apple Podcasts. You just leave a review on Will Cain's work this week.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Please do that.
Transformers, it's out now. I'm going to see it just because my friend is in it. Well, 2 of my friends, Mark and Josh.
Can we just, don't you dare equivocate. You full on, flat out said bestie.
I think even Demel was a little weirded out. You're like, well, you guys have hung out a bunch. We're like, been at like 2 things at the same time.
Getting to know Ryan, and I know when I'm coming to the edge. I know I see the line, and I want to get like right up against it. I knew when I did that, if I overstate the relationship a little bit, Ryan's gonna then he'll flip on me. He's gonna get mad at me, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna get it close. I'm gonna get it close.
So you want to see how mad you can get me? Is that what you just said?
I just want the real stuff, man. Just the real stuff. Any way I can get it.
I will admit that I was a little nervous that Demel would be leaving here going, does that guy think we're that close? So I did massage it a bit, but the fact that I showed up to his premiere for Spaceman through Ben Lyons, he sincerely was like, I can't believe you made it. I'm like, what? Are you serious? Fergie's over there? You kidding me? I love it out here.
Do you know, you want to do a toss? I know. Do you know how many times he's been asked today what your first hit line was on Fergie? I just Googled Josh Duhamel today, saw it on Mike and Mike.
I made sure, America. I was like, I'm not doing Fergie. I'm not doing the Fergie commentary.
Good call.
But we probably still did a bunch of stuff other people did too. What are you going to do? Although Levitart's show, they handle that interview differently.
It's unique.
Man. All right, moving on. Here is Will Cain talking to Demel.
Previously on the Ryen Russillo Show.
You're like, I can see why you two hung out. Like, you are remarkably normal. Like, you're remarkably
really,
dude. Yeah, you're a dude. You're one of the guys. I know I just met you like 3 minutes ago, so I'm sure my portrayal is 100% accurate. By the way, to an actor who's really good at pretending.
You're amazing.
However,
Will,
I can
really.
see why you guys hung out. So let's just presume for a moment that I'm right, that you're kind of normal.
Yeah.
What percentage of other Hollywood actors are dudes? Can drop in, can do the guys' weekend, hang out?
Well,
don't tell me it's high. I know you just told me Shia is a great guy. Now, don't tell me Shia drops in and it's just everything goes smoothly.
And then you didn't kind of really let him answer.
Well, you cut it that way. I noticed it too. It's like, okay, shut up, Cain. Let the famous guy answer.
Is it weird that, in a way, we thought all of that's normal, and if you're Dumel, you leave going, so what's this? I just walk into a room and a guy goes, hey, you're normal.
No.
Okay, all right.
Josh Duhamel's life, this is how easy it gets at some point.
Are you having a bigger problem with Giannis today or Dumel?
Doesn't matter. In the end, it doesn't matter. Giannis is to talk about himself. That's where Josh has gotten to. Yeah, so I talk about that he's normal. Guess what? Normal day for him. Forget content, Ryan. You no longer have to do content, right? You don't got the Jimmy Butler trade. Don't do it. You just talk about you today.
Right now, I can't wait to go to bed. That's what I got for you. I didn't even check to see if I got a caddy on the tour staying with me. I don't even know if he's gone or not. I got to figure out how he did. I got to check the cut line.
How's that been, by the way? Every night when you come home, you guys have a couple of beers, talk.
I worked 17 hours yesterday, so I haven't seen him. I haven't seen him yet. Well, I saw him in the beginning. We went out to dinner. Then I brought him down here, gave him a little tour. I ran into 3 security guards. All gave me a hard time because I had my badge with me. I go, what are the chances of me running into 3 guys, age 20-ish to 30-ish, not knowing? They just like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, I work here. I'm like, where's your badge? Like, I forgot it.
It's your day, remember?
Yeah. My day was the next day. Will Cain's the man. Lamont Jones is next.